श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की अंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय श्री श्री मायापुर नाथद्वीप वाम की जय श्री वृंदावन जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Gauranga Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna to everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Feast program. Today I would like to speak on the topic of the role of intelligence in spiritual advancement. And to understand about this, I would like to read a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 20, text 32. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text 32. Text 32. Yes. Maitreyo Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Drishye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Drishye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Drishye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam. Maitreyo Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Maitreya Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Maitreyo Vacha.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Ityādirājena nutassa vishvadrik.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Tamaharajan mai bhaktirastute.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Dishtye drishidhir maite kritayaya.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Mayam madiyam tarati smadushtyajam.
Does anybody else want to read? Word to word translations. Maitreyaha.
Maitreya.
Maitreya, the great sage.
Maitreya the great sage.
Uvacha.
Uvacha.
Spoke.
Spoke.
Iti.
Iti.
Thus.
Thus.
Adirājena.
Adirājena.
By the original King Prithu.
By the original King Prithu.
Nutaha.
Nutaha.
Being worshipped.
Being worshipped.
Saha.
Saha.
He, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Vishvadrik.
Vishvadrik.
The seer of the whole
The
universe.
seer of the whole universe.
Tam.
Tam.
Unto him.
Unto him.
Aha.
Aha.
Said.
said,
Rajan,
Rajan,
my dear king,
my dear king,
Mai,
Mai,
unto me,
unto me,
Bhaktihi,
Bhakti,
devotional service,
devotional service,
Astu,
Astu,
let it be,
let it be,
Te,
Te,
your,
your,
Dishtya,
Dishya,
by good fortune,
by good fortune,
Idrishi,
Idrishi,
like this,
like this,
Dehi,
He,
intelligence,
intelligence,
Mai,
Mai,
unto me,
unto me,
Te,
Te,
by you,
by you,
Krita,
Krita,
having been performed,
having been performed,
Yaya,
Yaya,
by which,
by which,
Mayam,
Mayam,
illusory energy,
illusory energy,
Madiyam,
Madhyam,
my,
my,
Tarati,
Karati,
crosses over,
crosses over,
Sma,
Sma,
certainly,
certainly,
Dushyajam,
Dishya,
very difficult to give up.
very difficult to give up.
Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued by saying that the Lord, the seer of the universe, after hearing Prithu Maharaj's prayer, addressed the king, "My dear king, may you always be blessed by engaging in my devotional service. Only by such purity of purpose as you yourself very intelligently express can one cross over the insurmountable illusory energy of Maya." Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord also claims that the illusory energy is insurmountable. No one can transcend the illusory energy of Maya by fruitive activity, speculative philosophy, or mystic yoga. The only means for transcending illusory energy is devotional service, as the Lord Himself states, "Mam evaye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te." Bhagavad Gita 7.14. If one wants to cross over the ocean of material existence, there is no alternative than to take to devotional service. A devotee, therefore, should not care for any material position, whether in heaven or in hell. A pure devotee should always engage in the service of the Lord, for that is his real occupation. Simply by sticking to that position, one can overcome the stringent laws of material nature. That's right. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Damadaya Nagara Gramatarine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinadarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Reading the translation again. The great sage Maitreya continued by saying that the Lord, the seer of the universe, after hearing Prithu Maharaj's prayer, addressed the king, "My dear king, may you always be blessed by engaging in my devotional service. Only by such purity of purpose as you yourself very intelligently expressed can one cross over the insurmountable energy of Maya." So, in this verse, I would just like to give a brief introduction of the context, that this is in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Prithu Maharaj is performing 100 horse sacrifices. So at this point, he has completed his 99 horse sacrifices. And when he is performing the 100th horse sacrifice, Indra became envious and he became competitive. So he wanted to somehow stop the 100th horse sacrifice, because he was fearing that Prithu Maharaj will take his position. So he tried to steal the horse, and then he was trying to stop the yajna. So Lord Brahma, he came, and then advised Prithu Maharaj to stop the last horse sacrifice because Indra was getting competitive. And so, Prithu Maharaj, very intelligently, he obeyed the orders of Lord Brahma because he knows that the purpose of performing his yajna is to please the Supreme Lord. And if the Supreme Lord is going to be pleased, if he stops the yajna, then he thought that is an intelligent thing to do because his ultimate purpose is to please the Supreme Lord. So he was ready to sacrifice the results of his sacrifice, yajna. So that was his intelligence, and his purpose was to please the Supreme Lord, so he stuck to his purpose. So this is a very interesting verse, and we can have a set of 3 reflections from this. The first one is that not everyone can be intellectual, but everyone can be intelligent. There's a difference between intellectual and intelligent. So when a person is intelligent, it is a Brahmanical quality. It is actually indicating information processing capabilities like memorizing, recollecting, analyzing, categorizing, synthesizing, etc. And this is given as a gift from the Supreme Lord as a result of past good karma. Whereas intelligence means that intelligence is the ability to discern right from wrong, to discern spiritual from material, and to choose the right course of actions. So how do we know a person is intelligent? If a person is intelligent, then his words and actions will be in sync. He speaks what he does. And then he will be very consistent in his devotional service in all types of situations. And then also that if he is intelligent, he will not give in to his innate inclinations or react emotionally to situations. So this is the difference between these two. So intellectual capability, if an intellectual person is well versed in scriptures, then he may be able to memorize a lot of verses, quote references from scriptures. But an intelligent person, he will be able to understand the essence of how to mold his life in order to apply these principles in his day-to-day life. So, not everybody can be intellectual, but everyone can become intelligent by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So if one sincerely performs devotional service, Krishna gives spiritual intelligence to such people who surrender unto him. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, 10th verse, Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yena mam upayanti te. That for persons who engage in devotional service with love and devotion, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna gives the intelligence when we perform devotional service. And also in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 66th verse, Krishna says, Nasti buddhira yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantir ashantasya kuta sukam. This means that when one does not engage in devotional service, Nasti buddhir ayuktasya is not engaging. So when one does not engage his intelligence in devotional service, then he does not have a steady intelligence. And when one does not have a steady intelligence, he does not have peace. And when one does not have peace, where is the question of happiness? That's what this verse states. So we have to perform devotional service in order to have a steady intelligence. The second reflection that we can have is that intelligence is a component of bhakti. It is not a competitor. What this means is when one advances in his spiritual life, he sets an example for the others. So when we set an example for the others, it does not mean that we are better than the others. It means that we are an example of something better for them, which means to say that we can fall down at any stage. So we have to be humble. So that is what is the meaning of intelligence. Intelligence is a component of bhakti, that we should not really become proud that we are better than others. And when one performs devotional service diligently, his conduct, his morality and his intelligence rises, and he or she becomes an example of the potency of devotion. So for jnanis, setting example is done in a mood of establishing that they are better than others, or in a mood of increasing their ego. But for a real devotee, for a bhakta, setting example is done in a mood of service to Krishna. So this is the difference between Jnana in Jnana Marga and Jnana in Bhakti Marga, that is the knowledge in Jnana Marga and the knowledge in Bhakti is different. This is the difference. So our intelligence should be used as a tool to understand more about Krishna and to know about him, rather than as a tool to increase our pride and to divert our attention to gaining worldly popularity. And generally, when a person knows little bit, he or she becomes very proud. As there's a famous saying that empty vessels make more noise. Whereas the person who knows a lot, he becomes very humble because he focuses on what else he needs to learn more rather than what he knows already. So it leads to humility, and also a person who knows very little bit, he will be very proud. So he'll be talking more about what he knows. So that way he will fail to focus on what he has to know more. So what we know already is not as important as what we need to know more, as what we want to know. So that is what is the difference between people who know a little bit and people who know a lot. So intelligence should not make us proud of what we know. We should always find every opportunity to know about Krishna and to have complete faith on his words. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, 19th verse, Yo mamevam sammudo janati purushottamam sasarva vidbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. That when one understands that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubt, he is the knower of everything. And so he engages fully in devotional service to Krishna. And there's a very interesting story in this regard about Haridas Thakur. Once when Srila Haridas Thakur, he visited Raghunath Das Goswami at his father's place, there were a group of learned persons and Brahmanas assembled there. And they were discussing about whether the chanting of the holy names will give liberation or not. So some agreed, some disagreed, some were in agreement, but they were quarreling like this. And in this spot, Srila Haridas Thakur arrived. So they asked the same question to Srila Haridas Thakur. And then Srila Haridas Thakur very humbly replied and said that even a semblance of the holy name of the Lord can give liberation very easily, not just chanting of the holy names. So when he said that, everybody were really astonished, and he gave the example of Ajamila, that how Ajamila, just by chanting the holy name of the Lord in the last moment, he could achieve the spiritual world. So then what to speak of people who chant with faith and reverence? That's what Srila Haridas Thakur said. And then there was one Brahmana there named Gopal Chakravarti, and he was very angry when he heard this from Srila Haridas Thakur. And then he said, even the holy name itself cannot deliver or give liberation. So what to speak of the semblance of the holy name? And if what I am speaking is wrong, then your nose will fall off in leprosy. And if what I'm speaking is right, then your nose will fall off in leprosy. And if what you're saying is right, then my nose will fall off in leprosy. So then after a few days, this Brahmana, when he said that, at that spot everybody were very angry with him. And in fact, Raghunath Das Goswami's father, he announced that he had no more connection with that Brahmana anymore. So everybody were very angry. But then after a few days, this Brahmana Gopal Chakravarti, he developed leprosy all over his body, and then his nose melted away. So then he realized that what a big mistake he had done in offending such a great Vaishnava like Srila Haridas Thakur. So then he went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and asked forgiveness from him. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave him and said that, please chant the holy names of the Lord continuously. And he obeyed the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he regained back his beautiful body again. So from this incident, we understand how much of faith we have to have on the words of the Supreme Lord. Just if Krishna says that, just by chanting his holy names you can go back to Godhead, we cannot ask how just by chanting we can go. If that is the process recommended in Kali Yuga, we have to have faith that it is possible to go back to Godhead with just chanting of the holy names with Shuddha Naam. So this is how we have to use our intelligence. So when one performs devotional service sincerely, he becomes spiritually intelligent. And the intelligence stimulates him or her to deepen, his faith and affection for Krishna. And the third reflection that we can have is that intelligence should be a minister, not a master. What we have to understand from this is that in those days there were kings and there were ministers for the kings. So the ministers, they will give good advice to the king. And it was up to the king whether to take the advice and implement it or not. So the king was the decision maker. The ministers just give inputs. The king decides actually. So similarly, the intelligence should be a minister. And in order to understand, because sometimes Krishna is beyond our intelligence. We cannot understand everything about Krishna through our intelligence. So intelligence can say some things, but it has to be a minister. If we could understand Krishna, the Supreme Lord, through our intelligence alone, then that means that the intelligence becomes superior to the Supreme. That means that the Supreme becomes subordinate to our intellectual scrutiny, which is obviously not true. And sometimes Krishna acts on the platform of love. Like for example, in the case of Shabari, in Ramayana, Shabari, she used to collect a lot of fruits, and then she used to keep it ready to offer to Lord Ram. And every day she used to collect the fruits, and then she used to taste some fruits and then keep it. So when Lord Ram came, she actually tasted the fruit and then gave it to Lord Ram. And because of her devotion, Lord Ram accepted it. So these things are beyond our intellectual scrutiny. And also the example of Vidura's wife. When Krishna came as a Shanti Doot, as a peace messenger to Hastinapur, Duryodhana, he had made Chappan Bhog, 56 different kinds of offerings. But his mood was not right. He wanted to somehow get Krishna's favor. So he did not like that, Krishna did not like that mood of Duryodhana. Instead, he went to Vidura's house. And Vidura and his wife were very good devotees of Krishna. So when Krishna came to their house, Vidura's wife, she did not have anything to offer him. So what she did is, in haste, she just knew that there were some bananas in the house. So in haste and out of restlessness, she offered the banana peels to Krishna, and then she threw away the bananas. So that was her devotion, and what happened is Krishna accepted it because he knew that she was doing it out of love and devotion to him. So Krishna accepted the peel and he ate the peel. So this is how Krishna reciprocates to devotees when they give a lot of love and devotion. So this is beyond our intellectual scrutiny sometimes, because some things may not make sense right away. But just because something does not make sense right away, we cannot conclude that the whole process is wrong. We still have to have faith and continue. If we cannot understand some things right now, we should understand that it is an indication that I am finite and Krishna is infinite. And if something is not making sense to me, that's because of my limited understanding. So maybe in future, if Krishna so desires, he will reveal to me at the appropriate time how and it could make sense to me again. But I will still keep continuing with full faith. So that should be our mood. That's when Krishna will also reveal certain things to us. And in order to understand this, there's another interesting story from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. That once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to South India, to the Mathura in South India, which is called as Madurai. So when he went to Madurai, there was a very good Brahmana called as Ramdas Vipra in Madurai, who was a very good devotee of Lord Ram. So when he knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come there, he invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come and have lunch at his home. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted his invitation and he took bath at the Kritamala river and he went to this Brahmana's house. So when he went to the Brahmana's house, he had kept everything still not completed, preparing. So then he was very upset. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, "Why are you so upset?" And then this Brahmana, he said that, how can Mother Sita be carried away by Ravana? How can she be touched by a demon? I'm not able to accept this, and I just want to give up my life, because how can Mother Sita, who is the goddess of fortune herself, be touched by any demon like that? So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu convinced him, saying that Mother Sita would not have been touched by Ravana, because it's not even Mother Sita, because it could have been an illusory form of Sita. Because goddess of fortune, Mother Sita, she cannot even be seen by material eyes, what to speak of being touched by material hands. So he convinced this Brahmana, and then he convinced him to complete the preparation, and then he had lunch, and also he convinced the Brahmana to eat his lunch. And then he continued his journey, and then he came to this place called Rameshwaram. And in Rameshwaram, he saw that a set of Brahmanas, they were reading from a Purana called as Kurma Purana. And then they were reading about the chastity of Mother Sita. So when they were reading about that, they read out that before Ravana actually abducted Sita, she was taken by Agni Dev, or fire god. She was taken by Agni to be with goddess Parvati, and then Agni replaced her with an illusory Sita. And then Ravana only kidnapped the illusory Sita. So then after the war of Ramayana was over, and after Ravana was killed, when Sita's chastity was asked to be proven, she entered into fire, and then Agni Dev again took away the illusory Sita and then gave back real Sita to Lord Ram. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, that these Brahmanas were reading this from the Kurma Purana, he was very satisfied. So he requested the Brahmanas to share the original manuscripts of the Kurma Purana. And because the original manuscripts had become old and worn out, they made a new copy, and then they gave the old manuscripts to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took the original manuscripts to this Brahmana in Madurai, and then he read out that, and then he had narrated what had happened. So then this Brahmana, Ramdas Vipra, was so happy. He fell at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he said that he was very happy to hear that. So this is how the Lord reciprocates with devotees. That initially this Brahmana had faith that the Lord will reveal things when it is appropriate. Initially it did not make sense to him, but he was still patient, and he had faith on the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he got an answer for it. So this is how the Lord reciprocates. So when one becomes more faithful on the words of the Supreme Lord, He will reveal to us. So the intelligence, it makes our faith grow more. It deepens our faith. So then this Brahmana was very happy, and then he prepared the feast. Again he served dinner to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what we understand from this story is that we have to have unflinching faith on the words of the Supreme Lord and continue in the process. So even in the last 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in the 70th verse, I think, that if you study Bhagavad Gita, or if you worship Krishna or if you read the sacred conversation of Krishna, then you worship him through your intelligence. So Krishna says that we have to engage our intelligence as well as our faith, our heart. So the heart and the head goes together in advancing towards Krishna. We cannot scrutinize everything with our intelligence. But at the same time, it does not mean that bhakti is just all about emotions. Because bhakti is using all our faculties to worship Krishna. That means that we are using our intelligence as well to worship Krishna. And as Srila Prabhupada states in the Bhagavad Gita in the introduction, I think, that religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes even fanaticism. Whereas philosophy without religion is dry mental speculation. So rational thinking is required to understand certain things, but that alone is not enough to understand Krishna. Because Krishna is beyond our intelligence. So we have to have faith and continue. So in this context of Prithu Maharaj, we understand that how Prithu Maharaj, his purpose was to simply please the Supreme Lord. So he was even ready to sacrifice the results of his sacrifice. And in this modern age where all of us are so much into, we are so result oriented, even as practicing devotees sometimes we tend to think that what we can gain out of devotional service. So it's very hard to find people like Prithu Maharaj who was ready to sacrifice the results of his sacrifice. He has performed 99 sacrifices, and then the last sacrifice, if he completed, he would have done the 100 Ashwamedha Yagnas. But he was ready to sacrifice the results of that sacrifice because he wanted to just please the Supreme Lord. So it's very difficult to find characteristics like him. That is why Krishna, he says that, he blesses Prithu Maharaj by saying that, I bless you that you will be engaged in devotional service all the time. So if we also develop such steady intelligence, and if we engage in the devotional service of the Lord, then we can also get such blessings from the Lord, to be always engaged in His service and to attain eternal happiness in bhakti. So what we can understand from the verse is that intelligence should lead to humility and not to thinking that we are better than others. And then also that intelligence should be not the only factor to decide to understand Krishna. Talking about humility, when one is actually humble, I just wanted to mention that humility does not just mean that you think that you are lower than others, because it's always, it's good to have a little bit of self-esteem, to have motivation to do things. It's not that we have to always think that we are so bad or we are worthless or something. But at the same time, we should not be thinking very great about ourselves. So humility means that we don't have inferiority complex as well as superiority complex. Humility means that our focus is shifted to Krishna's greatness and His devotees' greatness. So when we shift our focus on glorifying others or to understand more from others, then we become humble rather than just thinking low about ourselves or high about ourselves. So simply humility means thinking less about ourselves and thinking more about Krishna's devotees and Krishna's greatness. And in the Kali Yuga, the process of performing devotional service, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it is recommended in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashaka Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Natah Parataro Upayate Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. That this 16-syllabled Mahamantra, it will destroy all the evil effects of Kali Yuga. And there is no other way in this Kali Yuga if you search throughout the Vedic scriptures. So when Krishna has given us this process and the path, we have to stick to it with faith. And we have to have faith on the words of Srila Prabhupada. By following these principles, we will be able to go back to Godhead. It is not something that is imaginary. It is possible. So we have to have faith. And we have to slowly try our best to be as most sincere, as much as possible. We have to be sincere. That's what is going to lead us towards Krishna. With this, I would like to end with this note and open the forum for any discussions, questions, comments, any corrections. Please correct me if I have spoken anything wrong, and also add your realizations. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the nice talk. I had one question and one comment.
Okay.
My question was, if it was an illusory Sita that was stolen by Ravana, then why was there a huge war over an illusory Sita, and why was Rama so disturbed by an illusory Sita being kidnapped?
Yeah, because everybody did not know that it was illusory Sita. So for the story's sake, these are the pastimes of the Lord, that for the story's sake, the story went on like that. Because if it was, as you said, if it was just for an illusory Sita, then it wouldn't have made sense. But nobody knew that. Only people who, like the Ramdas Vipra, who was feeling so bad about the incident, for such devotees, it was revealed by the Lord.
But also, Ram needed to be, Ravana needed to be dealt with.
Yeah.
He needed to kill. And that was the mission. The Lord comes to annihilate the demons.
Very true, yes. Thank you for adding that point.
Yeah, I wanted to add one point to that what Prabhu said. So the reason is that prior to the Ramayana, or Rama's appearance, this happened. So there was an lady, I don't recollect her name. So she wanted to have Lord Vishnu as her husband. She did a lot of tapasya. And so what happened was she was doing tapasya, and then Ravana happened to pass by. And then he was attracted to her, and he came and he wanted to take her by force. So she said that, so and she burned herself, but before she burned herself, because she didn't want to be taken by Ravana, she cursed him that if you try to take any more, try to do a similar thing in future, so then that will be the end of your whole life. So that will be the cause for your complete destruction of your dynasty. So she made a curse. And she actually returned back as the Purishwari Sita to be kidnapped by Ravana. And then she was finally killed. This is how the Ramayana we have prepared for Ramayana happens.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, just one more thing. I don't know if I'm remembering correctly or not, but you were telling the story about Gopal Chakravarti. His nose came off from leprosy. From what I remember, I might be mistaken, but from what I remember that I read, that he actually wasn't forgiven. Lord Chaitanya, when you asked for forgiveness to Lord Chaitanya, he didn't forgive him actually, and he had to suffer for many years. Isn't that correct?
I kind of remember, when you were telling the story, I'm trying to think maybe that there was someone else similarly to had got, that's the other person.
Chapal Gopal.
Chapal Gopal,
Yes.
So there's two individuals.
And he had to surrender to Srivastava.
Yeah, so that's a different,
Yeah. So that's a different person. Yes, Prabhu?
Class is awesome, really.
Yeah.
But because you asked, and just for the sake of, whatever, Haridas Thakur said that, and Gopal Chakravarti disagreed, and Gopal Chakravarti said, if basically if you're not right, I will cut off your nose. And then Haridas Thakur responded, if I am incorrect, I will cut off my nose. That's exactly.
Yeah.
So that was just for the sake of total, But
Sure.
really, please, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Shedding
adding
a lot of
that.
light on a subject that needs light shed on, that isn't often shed on. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for asking and adding that.
One thing,
Yes, Madhuri?
you mentioned horse sacrifices. Everybody knows we're vegetarians. For the sake of new people, could you explain this thing?
Yeah, so horse sacrifices is done in order to, usually the kings, they do horse sacrifices in order to establish their supremacy over the whole world. So one who is really qualified, even Rama did the Ashwamedha Yajna or horse sacrifice. So kings usually do the horse sacrifice. Is that right, Prabhu, or anybody can correct?
The horse sacrifice, I think she can add, perhaps. I think she's, Mother, you can.
Mother, you can add.
That they did it in those ancient times,
Mm-hmm.
and we are not allowed to do sacrifices anymore like that. But they had the power by mantras to give the animal a new life, which we just kill it, if we did it. So they could give the animal new life. So it's completely different from nowadays.
Yes, very true.
So
you
an
should not
old horse
imitate
would
it.
walk into the fire, and a younger one would come out.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Thank you for adding that, Madhuri. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's one point that you mentioned about we should look at the intelligence as a minister, not as a master. So this connects back to a few days back we had the Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj's disappearance day. So in one of the situations, so his disciple or his company, he said that we should have a big feast because there is an upcoming festival. Then he said, yes, we should have a big feast. But again, after the day of feast came, and then he said, no, we're not going to cook anything, but we're going to chant on that day. So this thought is actually the mind suggestion for us to do sense gratification. So we should always be watchful about the mind, intelligence, what it says, and be careful about the inner happenings within our mind. And so, as you said, you can chant, and that purifies the mind, intelligence. Slowly, it doesn't give you these kind of sense gratification thoughts. It gives you more thoughts for how to do it.
Very true. Thank you for adding that. Any more comments, realizations, or questions? Yes, Prabhu?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote an incredible article called Reason and Love. think that's the title of it. Something definitely worth reading. It's very short, and he basically says you will not. A lot of people will say that devotees are sentimental and not very intelligent and not very reasonable, but he goes on to say that actually Vaishnavas are the most reasonable people. They take reason to its maximum degree, and then from that maximum point, one enters into spirituality. So devotees are most intelligent. In fact, Prabhupada writes, one is only intelligent if one engages in devotional service. And others are not intelligent. He makes that very clear. So that is the taking reason to its maximum degree, we take to Vaidhi Bhakti properly and the guidance of spiritual mastery. Yeah.
Thank you for adding that, Prabhu. And then also the amount of information that's available through us, through the scriptures. This much information we will not be able to find in any other religion or any other, philosophy. So much of information, so we cannot even compare. And there's detail and answer to every question. Srila Prabhupada has answered almost every question that everybody can think of. So it's completely, Yes, Prabhu.
So the most intellectual person can also be an intelligent person, but then all those other intellectual persons down to the most meager intellectual person can also be an intelligent person just by taking to the path of devotional service.
Yes. So intelligence is taking right decisions, and also, of course, spiritual intelligence is different from material intelligence. So material intelligence others can also have based on their previous good karma, but spiritual intelligence is gained by doing more and more devotional service. So you gain more and more spiritual intelligence by doing more devotional service. Not necessarily that a person has to be intellectually very capable, but he can still become intelligent. Krishna shows the way. Yes?
I've heard that by intelligence we have an understanding of what can be done or what should be done.
Yes.
And by doing that, we receive from Krishna, from Paramatma, realizations about how right that was, and that realization gives us that spiritual intelligence you're talking about.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you for adding that.
And this class proves that Vaishnavis are just as intelligent as their male counterparts. Or more so.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'm most unqualified, but
I think Hridayananda Maharaj would probably approve of that.
It's all by Krishna's mercy and Guru's mercy, Srila Prabhupada's mercy, that it is possible. Thank you so much for encouraging words and all the comments and add-ons. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.